we'll move on to the Camellia Bowl, which is going to feature Georgia Southern. Has this 3.5 they're laying against Buffalo. Total is 67 in here. And Dave, I guess if you look at this, you're probably looking at that total and going, I don't know. Is that enough points? Do you trust to lay the field goal with the hook? How do you approach this one?
Well, I have a rule, similar rule. Any team that's playing in any of these games that allows more than 200 yards per game on the ground, I ain't playing them. Okay, so that takes me away from Georgia Southern. But they're the better team here. The Buffalo is, I think their coach is pretty good, but there's just not a lot of talent on this team. So I don't know what to do with it. I really don't. A lot of these games end up being throwouts, and this is one of them. I can't take Georgia Southern. I won't take Georgia Southern because of the rushing defense. But I think they ought to beat this team because they're simply more talented. So if you want to take that as a nod to Georgia Southern, go ahead. But it's your money, not mine.
It was funny. Mejia, I think early on in the year, we had talked, Ralph Michaels on the show. We're all saying, this Buffalo team's going to be in for a long season, right? A lot of turnover, knew everything going on there. But they turned out to be pretty decent, rattled off a bunch of wins there right early on. So what do you think of their chances going on the road here in Alabama, I believe, and getting it done here?
Well, spoiler alert, Power got in on Slack a little before me, but I'm going to be right there with him. I like Georgia Southern a ton. Look, the strength of schedule thing is a big deal to me. Buffalo is in this bowl game based on a 5-game winning streak that they got. They beat UMass in that stretch, but the other 4 were all MAC opponents. We all know the MAC is the worst of the conferences in Division I at the FBS level. And, the most impressive win that they have out of those is Toledo. I mean, that was a legit win. They got it at home. This is the Kyle Van Treese Bowl. Van Treese was a quarterback at UB for the last few years. Now he's at Georgia Southern, putting up big numbers for Clay Helton. He was one of the more prolific passers at the FBS level this season. And Georgia Southern comes off a huge overtime win, double OT, 51-48 over Appalachian State at home. That was impressive. They played Marshall. They played the Raging Cajuns. So battle tested. They come in far better tested than Buffalo does. The Bulls barely snuck into the bowl season with a 23-22 comeback win over Akron in a late season game, a matinee affair that they were expected to win by much more than they actually did. Didn't win it till late. And I know a lot of people watched that game because it was one of the few that was on. And most of the money was on Buffalo due to the fact that they needed to win to get bowl eligible. But yeah, I think Van Treese gets after it against his former teammates. The Bulls have bad special teams, an inconsistent offense, and their defense is only good when they can create turnovers. If Van Treese plays well, I think Georgia Southern wins going away.
All right, the possibility of a blowout. Does that lead you to look at the total, Bryan Power, or any sort of side angle you're looking at here?
As Tony alluded to, I'm seeing this game pretty much the same way he is. Buffalo had a bad finish to the year, 0-4 against the number. Tony talked about the barely escaping Akron, who's a horrible team, as you know, Joe. Yes. Georgia Southern now didn't exactly knock them dead down the stretch. They lost 3 in a row, but they did get that win that Tony mentioned over App State to get 6-6. And Van Treese, I think, is the key here. It's a storyline. I'm sure we're going to hear about it for 3 hours if you're watching the game, but he just flat out gives the Eagles a big edge offensively. Buffalo 1-6 when they allow 27 or more points. Georgia Southern allows 33.7 points per game, or averages 33.7 points per game, excuse me. Buffalo's 0-3 when they allow more than 283 pass yards in a game. Van Treese hit that mark in all but 4 games. This is probably going to be on my card. It's going to be the best bet on the show today. Give me Georgia Southern. The MAC is the weakest conference, and I'm going to be looking to play against them pretty regularly, I think, this bowl season.
All right, there you go. Georgia Southern it is for Mejia and Bryan Power.